So welcome to Ponte di Legno and to the MountResilience kickoff meeting. So I will now leave the floor to Professor Anna Giorgi, who is the principal investigator of the project and will manage the opening session of today's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefano. It's a pleasure for me, of course, to welcome you here in Ponte di Legno. I'm the responsible of the Unimont Research Center, which is a detachment of the University of Milan, placed in Edolo, that is a village not far from here, surrounded by mountains, of course, and entirely dedicated to mountain issues and to sustainable development of mountain areas. As a rector delegate for mountain issues, I'm bringing you greetings from the rector of the University of Milan, which is one of the biggest universities in Italy, celebrating 100 years of history in 2024. It's a big university of a big city, which decided to invest successfully in the setting up of a center of excellence recognized by the Italian Ministry of Research and University, named University of Mountain, Unimont, as previously mentioned. We are here to discuss how to find together and collaborate to find together some solutions and effective approaches to face climate change effects in mountain areas and to adapt in a proper way the communities of mountains, living in mountains, and creating maybe value from this change. So it's my pleasure to welcome you here in Ponte di Legno, and Ponte di Legno is one of the touristic places, the main touristic places in one of the main Lombardy region alpine valley, and where we can see clearly the effects of climate change. MountResilience is a very ambitious project involving 47 partners from 12 European countries and aims to accelerate the climate resilient transformation of mountains in 9 European countries. 6 regional demonstration sites and 4 regional replicator sites will be established to find and test adaptation strategies and approaches on important effects of climate change in mountains, such as water floods and scarcity, droughts, heat waves and fires, biodiversity loss, and the management of the human activities in this new situation, such as tourism, management of natural resources, such as water. An important task of this project is also to communicate and disseminate the results of our activity together, and communication activities and dissemination activities will be a very important part of this project. That's why we invited to this kickoff meeting some representatives from local and national institutions in order to promote the involvement of the stakeholders from the local and the national level. Moreover, in the visit study of this afternoon, some people participating to the Climbing for Climate initiative, which is an initiative organized within the University Network for Sustainability, which was launched in Italy some years ago, will participate and will join us in order to create a collaboration also with the civil society, to inform the civil society about what we are doing together. So it's my pleasure to give now the floor to the first important representative of a public institution, national public institution, following us in this project, which is the Marcella Gargano, which is the General Director of the Italian Ministry of University and Research. Please, Marcella, it's up to you.
Buongiorno a tutte, buongiorno a tutti. Io ringrazio la professoressa Anna Giorgi per l'invito a portare i miei saluti nella giornata di apertura del kick-off meeting che si apre stamattina. E saluto quindi la professoressa Anna Giorgi, saluto i sindaci di Ponte di Legno e di Edolo, Ivan Fossinelli e Luca Masneri. Saluto il presidente di Federbim, Pedersoli, e il generale di brigata del centro di addestramento alpino, Alessio Caricchioli, e che appunto interverranno nella sessione di apertura di stamattina. Sono, come dire, particolarmente contenta di poter intervenire nella giornata stamattina di apertura, in quanto il tema dell'adattamento ai cambiamenti climatici, specialmente nei contesti montani d'Europa, rappresenta un tema cruciale che deve essere affrontato attraverso progetti di ricerca che mettano in connessione le principali istituzioni attive nel campo della ricerca e dell'innovazione a livello europeo, promuovendo la creazione di sinergie e lo scambio di conoscenze. E di questa necessità ne è prova tangibile il finanziamento da parte della Commissione europea sulle missioni di Horizon Europe, per il quale anche la Ministra dell'Università e della Ricerca ha espresso il suo apprezzamento a Unimi e a Unimont, che sono dedicate all'adattamento ai cambiamenti climatici del progetto MountResilience, che ha come capofila proprio il polo di Unimont, l'Università degli Studi di Milano, e che coinvolge, e ne è testimonianza la partecipazione quindi a queste 3 giornate, 13 paesi europei e 47 partner. Le istituzioni di formazione e di ricerca con la loro attività hanno un'importante e naturale ricaduta sui territori in termini di impatto, e rispetto a questo oggi c'è un'attenzione maggiore e soprattutto una maggiore consapevolezza che è maturata nel tempo e che vede le attività di queste istituzioni come attività di valorizzazione delle conoscenze, ovvero come un processo con cui si crea un valore sociale ed economico proprio a partire dalle conoscenze. Ed è cambiata la percezione e la considerazione, e nel senso di maturazione, per le quali le istituzioni di ricerca rivestono sempre più il ruolo di supportare lo sviluppo territoriale, facilitandone l'acquisizione di competenze da parte delle popolazioni locali e il trasferimento di conoscenze per rendere i territori più resilienti ai cambiamenti climatici. E questi sono obiettivi che l'Università Statale di Milano, attraverso il polo di Unimont, sta implementando con un presidio territoriale attivo a Edolo, tra le montagne alpine, e che io ho avuto la fortuna di conoscere, di visitare e di frequentare. Questi obiettivi sono evidenziati in linea con il Piano Nazionale della Ricerca 21-27, che è stato approvato dal nostro Ministero, dal Ministero dell'Università e della Ricerca nel 2021. E quindi io vi auguro 3 giorni di intensi e proficui lavori che si aprono con la study visit di questo pomeriggio, che è stata inclusa anche nel palinsesto di eventi della rete delle università per la sostenibilità, la RUS, che è un network italiano che ha la finalità di coinvolgere e sensibilizzare la società civile sui temi della sostenibilità e del cambiamento climatico nell'ambito di Climbing for Climate. E quindi a voi i miei auguri per un proficuo confronto in queste 3 giornate, che siano appunto l'inizio di una collaborazione strutturata e che possa davvero dimostrare come la vostra capacità di fare ricerca e di poi supportare le popolazioni territoriali possano essere il valore aggiunto dell'attività investita su questi territori. Vi ringrazio e ve lo auguro a tutte e a tutti.
Thank you very much, Marcella Gargano. And now Stefano
I will try to translate
Okay,
everything.
okay, thank you.
Of course, it will not be literal, because of course. Marcella Gargano welcomes this initiative. She represents the Italian Ministry for Research and Universities. She welcomes this project and underlines the fact that climate change is a relevant issue also in the national agenda for research, which goes in line with the European Commission priorities. And she underlines also the need to promote this type of projects that connect territories. She then underlined the fact that late in the last years, the role of universities has been changed as well, and now they are perceived as agents of change also at the territorial level. So it's really important that universities actually engage and construct a dialogue with the territories they insist on, and for this reason she welcomes also the fact that the project will be led by the University of Milan and the Unimont Center, because we have been living and operating, let's say, for the past 25 years on the territory and in mountain areas. So the project dedicated to climate change in mountain areas, it's relevant also because it's led by such an institution, and she hopes that you will have a good time in Ponte di Legno. She had the opportunity to visit a few times already, and she welcomes also the initiative of Climbing for Climate, which is organized by the Network of University for Sustainability in Italy, that you will do this evening.
Okay, thank you, Stefano. And now it's time for the mayor of Ponte di Legno, Ivan Faustinelli. Thank you, it's up to you.
Grazie. Good morning and welcome to Ponte di Legno. Sorry, but I prefer to speak in Italian because my English is not very well. Buongiorno a tutti, quindi innanzitutto un ringraziamento all'Università di Edolo e alla professoressa Giorgi per aver scelto Ponte di Legno come tappa zero di questo importantissimo progetto. Ciao pezzettini piccoli.
Sì. Okay, so he's the mayor of the municipality you're staying at, and he welcomes this initiative, and thanks also our university for being a promoter of this project as well.
I cambiamenti climatici, sappiamo, stanno sconvolgendo il nostro pianeta, stanno e provocheranno nei prossimi anni delle grandi catastrofi naturali, come abbiamo visto l'ultima recente, l'alluvione in Libia, provocheranno migrazioni di massa, guerre, insomma sconvolgimenti a carattere generale su tutto il pianeta. Bisogna parlarne diciamo, per sensibilizzare le persone, e bisogna portare avanti e mettere in campo delle iniziative concrete, mirate e urgenti soprattutto. Ed inoltre, come ha detto la professoressa Giorgi un attimo fa, anche delle adeguate strategie di adattamento per le comunità.
So climate change, as we know, it's having huge effects worldwide in a lot of different territories. So it's really important that municipalities and communities start acting with the support also of research institutions and other type of agents in order to plan and adapt and construct, let's say, adaptation strategies.
Per quanto riguarda invece la montagna, calandoci più nel concreto ed in particolare la nostra montagna, quindi l'Alta Val Camonica e la nostra località Ponte di Legno Tonale, le tematiche più diciamo, di attualità e quelle che saranno di attualità nei prossimi anni e nei prossimi decenni sono a mio avviso fondamentalmente tre, che sono la vulnerabilità del territorio rispetto ai fenomeni naturali, sono lo scioglimento del ghiacciaio Presena che sta diciamo, avvenendo con dei ritmi molto rapidi, molto più di quello che ci si aspettasse, e il terzo è in particolare, in modo più generico, il futuro della nostra località e delle località turistiche di montagna, soprattutto per quanto riguarderà la stagione invernale.
Okay, so he underlines that climate change is having effects already also on this type of territory, so on mountain areas, and especially for this municipality, the challenges right now and for the future years, it will be first of all a vulnerability of the territory. We see more landslides and this type of issues. The second issue that it's going to take place is the fact that on Passo Tonale there is a glacier which is called Presena, and it's vastly disappearing, so it will cause a lot of problems in the next years. And the last one, which is connected to the first 2 points, is the winter tourism. So these localities still depend on winter tourism, so the communities have to understand how to adapt, and if there will be future strategies, how to implement them on the territory.
Negli ultimi 4-5 anni, dal 2018 ad oggi, abbiamo visto il verificarsi sul nostro territorio di alcuni fenomeni naturali, alcuni disastri naturali che mai erano avvenuti nei decenni precedenti. E mi riferisco alla tempesta Vaia, che con dei venti a velocità elevatissime ha spazzato via migliaia di alberi. Mi riferisco al bostrico, che sta facendo seccare tutti gli abeti rossi sul nostro territorio e sono la specie prevalente, e secondo gli esperti questo non sarebbe dovuto succedere perché il bostrico non superava quote di 1000-1200 metri, ma questo avveniva con le temperature che c'erano qualche decennio fa, mentre oggi è tutto cambiato ed inoltre sono avvenute delle alluvioni, dei fenomeni franosi dovuti a dei temporali, delle tempeste fortissime che hanno un'intensità che mai si era registrata. E questo purtroppo è solo il preludio di quello che a mio avviso potrà succedere nei prossimi anni, e l'unico modo per proteggersi, per salvaguardare il territorio dal nostro punto di vista dell'amministrazione comunale che rappresento è quella della prevenzione, e per questo stiamo investendo in interventi puntuali di prevenzione sulle valli, sui corsi d'acqua, eccetera.
So to make a few examples of problems that have occurred on this territory, actually you will see them this evening because it will be the focus of our hike. So the first one is a Vaia tempest which occurred in 2019, if I'm not wrong, and it actually caused a lot of problems with trees, and you will see later as well. The second problem that we are having in the Italian Alps is the bark beetle. So the problem that we are having, this insect that is actually causing a lot of issues with the population of trees and the forests. The third problem that they're facing and they've seen in these years is storms and the effects of these storms on the territory, which have increased a lot compared to the past. Due to the increase of temperatures that they're having. So as municipalities, they're acting to prevent these things and promoting territorial management, so on rivers and this type of intervention on the territory. But of course, climate change poses a lot of issues.
Per quanto riguarda invece il ghiacciaio Presena, che non so se avrete modo di visitare, siamo riusciti negli ultimi decenni a mantenere a grandi linee il livello esistente, quindi a mantenere il pareggio tra la formazione del ghiaccio invernale e lo scioglimento estivo, grazie all'innevamento artificiale nella stagione invernale e dei teli geotessili che vengono posizionati nella stagione estiva, un progetto portato avanti con il Muse e con l'Università di Trento. Purtroppo le temperature degli ultimi 2 anni e le scarse precipitazioni invernali invece hanno cambiato questo status quo, e ora non si riesce più a mantenere questo equilibrio. C'è stato un forte scioglimento negli ultimi 2 anni e non solo non si potrà più continuare a praticare lo sci estivo come avveniva nei decenni scorsi, ma dai prossimi anni probabilmente non si potrà più praticare nemmeno quello invernale, perché si sta creando una conca all'interno del ghiacciaio stesso.
So the last example that he wants to make is on the glacier Presena, as I was telling you. It's just above the town, and it is used also for winter skiing and summer skiing in the past. So in the past, what they did with the University of Trento was to cover the glacier to try and maintain the mass of the glacier and not to have too much melting in the summer. However, in the last 5 years, this has not been possible anymore, so they cover it still, but the mass is decreasing even though they're doing the same things. So this means that the temperature is increasing, and this will not be a solution for the future, and they will not be able to use it also for skiing anymore in the future.
E l'ultimo punto, ma probabilmente il più importante, riguarda il futuro della nostra località, ma più in generale credo delle località turistiche di montagna, ed in particolare per quanto riguarda la stagione invernale. che del resto è la stagione prevalente e quindi fondamentale per l'economia del nostro territorio. Sappiamo bene che nei prossimi anni, nei prossimi decenni nevicherà probabilmente meno, ma soprattutto nevicherà a quote sempre più alte, quindi il futuro delle località sciistiche è a rischio, alcune località a quote più basse hanno già chiuso e progressivamente potrebbe toccare anche a noi. Noi abbiamo la fortuna comunque di avere una quota abbastanza elevata, quindi per i prossimi anni, forse per i prossimi decenni saremo più salvaguardati, ma siamo comunque a rischio. Il nostro problema è che per noi diventa difficile pensare a un piano B, pensare a come riprogrammare diversamente la nostra qualità, perché di questo abbiamo sempre vissuto e questo è un po' il nostro punto di forza. Noi stiamo facendo nuovi investimenti anche sul demanio sciabile, lo stiamo facendo perché comunque abbiamo dalla nostra parte la quota, come dicevo prima faremo investimenti sopra i 1.500-1.700 metri di quota e questo sicuramente aiuta, ed inoltre realizzeremo degli impianti di annevamento artificiale all'avanguardia che permetteranno di produrre la neve anche quando non ci sarà. Però sappiamo bene che il problema esiste e che purtroppo con questo nei prossimi anni dovremo fare i conti. Dall'altra parte ci sarà anche qualche opportunità per quanto riguarderà comunque le località di montagna, perché se l'aumento delle temperature creerà delle grosse criticità nella stagione invernale, al tempo stesso potrebbe creare delle opportunità nella stagione estiva, ma soprattutto magari nelle stagioni, quelle che noi chiamiamo le mezze stagioni, in primavera, in autunno, perché chiaramente la montagna potrà diventare meta di chi scappa dalle città dove ci saranno temperature sempre più elevate.
So the last challenge that they're facing is considering that the fact that the economy here depends on winter tourism, and what he said is basically that they know that they have to adapt. So far here it's not so low in the altitude, so they're not seeing so many, well, they're seeing effects, but they're not so strong that the winter season cannot start, but so they know that they can invest still in this in winter tourism. However, in the next 10 or 20 years they will have to adapt, and they have to understand how to do that. One thing that they're thinking about is trying to promote tourism either in the summer, which is already going pretty well, I could say, for the past years, but also in the off-season. So like right now, from the end of September until the beginning of November. So this type of months, they see that maybe it will be an opportunity for the municipality to promote and try to diversify also their income on the territory.
Grazie Stefano, mi avvio alla conclusione. Ci aspettano, a noi amministratori aspettano nei prossimi anni delle scelte molto difficili, e per questo abbiamo bisogno di confrontarci con altre realtà simili alle nostre, dobbiamo confrontarci con esperti del settore, e quindi ben venga uno studio come questo che potrà essere utilizzato dagli amministratori appunto per fare delle scelte consapevoli e diciamo responsabili. L'obiettivo nostro degli amministratori deve essere quello di rendere le nostre comunità resilienti e quindi in grado di adattarsi a questa nuova situazione, con l'obiettivo che deve essere quello di garantire la sopravvivenza dei territori di montagna, ma soprattutto delle persone che ci abitano e che su questi territori hanno la loro storia e la loro economia e fanno crescere i propri figli. Grazie.
So he salutes this project and this initiative because he thinks that it's really important that the local communities and the municipalities, so who manages the territory, interacts with other localities and other type of territories that are similar to them, and that they construct a dialogue with this type of territories, because that enriches them and helps them in understanding how to preserve a future for their community on this territory. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your detailed description of the local dimension, which is the important place where we have to create impact, of course. Now it's time for Gianfranco Pederzolli. He is the president of the National Federation of Mountain Municipalities with Hydropower Generation Stations. Please, it's up to you.
Grazie. Un saluto a tutte le autorità civili e militari naturalmente qui presenti, ma un saluto particolare a voi giovani che venite da così lontano, da diverse nazioni, però tutti spinti da questo unico obiettivo che dobbiamo avere tutti, no? Il cambiamento climatico investe noi che ormai stiamo naturalmente chiudendo una vita, ma soprattutto una prospettiva per voi che naturalmente la dovete vivere in pieno. E quindi ben venga questo, naturalmente, questi continui raduni che si fanno, dove si fanno delle proiezioni per il futuro.
Okay, so I will this time is easier because I have the text. So he salutes this opportunity and welcomes you on the territory. He represents the authority that manages the communities that have hydropower plants, basically, on the territory. So he thinks that climate change is an important topic to be discussed, and he welcomes initiatives like this.
Un grazie particolare comunque lo dobbiamo dare come federazione a Unimont perché ci ha dato questo invito e questa opportunità naturalmente di parlare sempre con persone nuove e preparate. Per prima cosa mi voglio complimentare quindi con Unimont per aver ideato, promosso, conquistato la leadership di questo grande progetto che reputo un'iniziativa molto importante nel campo delle politiche della montagna a livello europeo. So che lo condurrai con la passione e la competenza che da anni ormai connotano la sua azione, in particolare quindi con questa forza che sempre naturalmente la professoressa Giorgi guida Unimont e naturalmente è sempre naturalmente presente quando si parla naturalmente di montagna.
So he welcomes the fact that Unimont and the University of Milan will lead this project, and thanks also for promoting this type of initiative and these European projects focusing on mountain areas, because it's really important also for the policies that focus on these territories. And he thanks also Professor Giorgi for the work that she's carrying out on the Unimont Center in the past years.
La federazione che rappresento è nata nel 1962 con lo scopo di rappresentare il sistema di governance previsto da una legge italiana, la 959 del 1953, una legge molto breve ma molto significativa per i territori di montagna. Una legge che ha stabilito un insieme di misure di tutela e indennizzo fondamentali per tutte le comunità che vivono in montagna, alle quali è stato sottratto il bene più importante che la natura ci abbia dato, l'acqua. E quindi è chiaro che è una legge che tutela soprattutto le regioni naturalmente e le popolazioni di montagna. È una legge di enorme importanza per queste popolazioni perché qui spesso ci sono state le grandi costruzioni di gigantesche opere infrastrutturali energetiche che hanno imposto sacrifici sociali, talvolta addirittura perdite umane, con enormi sacrifici per coloro che vivevano in questi luoghi.
So his federation is born in 1962, and the overall objective was to represent the territories and the governance system of these territories, and based on a law that is 959 from 1953, which is a really simple law, and the objective is to establish measures that will help the local communities, because in the past, the communities in Italy at least, the communities that had power dams and that powered the electricity for a lot of territories did not gain anything for the fact that they were giving a lot of natural resources for this purpose. With this law, the federation was born, and this has changed a little bit the paradigm, and it means that the mountain communities can have a contribution and contribute not only with the natural resources, but can gain something in return with that.
Dopo la seconda guerra mondiale l'industria ha cominciato a svilupparsi in Italia e aveva bisogno di energia e quindi è arrivata su questi territori e ha portato via, come ho detto prima, l'acqua. Ci sono state delle devastazioni abbastanza evidenti e qualche esempio, vediamo addirittura che un paese abbastanza vicino a noi della Val Venosta, il paese è stato completamente sommerso da un lago e si vede ancora naturalmente il campanile sporgere, no? Di Curon Venosta. Poi non dobbiamo dimenticare la tragedia che c'è stata a Gleno, qui vicino, e poi ricorderemo anche il grosso evento del Vajont con 1900 morti che ricorre fra poco, il 9 di ottobre, il 60° di questa grande tragedia sempre creata dall'uomo per lo sfruttamento del nostro territorio. Quindi questa federazione è nata proprio per portare avanti la salvaguardia di questi principi fondamentali per le persone che vivono in montagna. Rappresentiamo 3.500 comuni italiani, 143.000 km quadrati, 14 milioni naturalmente di persone che vivono in montagna e 68 di questi territori sono stati capaci di mettersi in rete fra di loro per formare naturalmente la federazione. Quindi grazie a questa legge che noi abbiamo potuto superare alcuni traumi storici e abbiamo potuto dare quindi un contributo a tutti coloro che vivono naturalmente su questo naturalmente territorio. Molto c'è ancora naturalmente da fare per aggiornare e potenziare gli effetti di queste naturalmente previsioni e noi naturalmente speriamo che attraverso una cooperazione con i comuni possiamo naturalmente portare anche qui e mantenere anche qui questo beneficio che, come prima il sindaco ha detto, siamo riusciti a costruire e vorremmo mantenere, sempre tenendo presente però i grossi problemi climatici che sentiamo ogni giorno sempre di più sulle nostre spalle, che ci creano ogni giorno naturalmente preoccupazione.
So his federation represents a huge territory because it's more than 3,500 municipalities. It's almost half of the land cover of Italy and 14 million of inhabitants, and they have 68 consortia that invest on mountain communities in order to recompensate, let's say, the effects of having hydropower plants on the territory. So he remembered a few territories that have suffered actually problems due to this presence. For example, Curon Venosta, it's in South Tyrol, and basically the whole town was covered, was flooded due to the construction of an artificial lake. Or tragedies that have occurred due to the presence of hydropower plants on the territory. So the Diga del Gleno here in Val di Scalve, where there was a huge problem with it, as well as Vajont, which is a national tragedy which happened 60 years ago. So their federation was born exactly to connect all these territories, and he thinks that right now their role is really important also to connect with the municipalities and discuss with them about the problems as well that they're facing due to climate change.
Quindi la nostra presenza qui oggi è per testimoniare la nostra attenzione alle politiche della montagna, per dare il nostro contributo su una tematica, quella della tutela e della valorizzazione del patrimonio idrico, che è strategica non solo per il nostro Paese, Italia, ma per tutta l'Europa, e non credo di fronte a una platea competente come questa ci sia bisogno di ricordare il tema naturalmente dell'acqua legato al tema del clima. La montagna, come ben sapete tutti, è un patrimonio prezioso ma anche un territorio fragile e la necessità di una strategia di adattamento è diventata ormai una priorità urgente. Il progetto che siete oggi qui riuniti a fare per far decollare un modo nuovo per costruire quindi un contributo a uno sforzo comune. Per questo fatemi ringraziare ancora una volta Unimont per questa iniziativa e sono fiducioso che il nostro impegno comune porterà a risultati significativi per la montagna e per l'ambiente. Fatemi anche concludere con una frase a me cara di un grande poeta romantico: quando uomini e montagne si incontrano, grandi cose possono accadere. E questo sia davvero di buon auspicio per tutto quello che dovremmo fare per portare in fondo questo progetto che abbiamo iniziato oggi. Grazie della vostra attenzione e grazie mille dell'invito che mi avete dato.
So to conclude, he underlined the need for policies and dedicated to the mountain areas to preserve the territory, as well as to promote a coherent development of the territory, as well as the hydropower, electricity, and hydro resources, the water resources that there is on the mountain territories. As is said, mountains are really precious. They're really precious territories, not only for mountain areas, but also for the plains that are connected to them. And however, they're really fragile, especially in terms of climate change. They're suffering a lot of effects. So it's really important to define strategies for the adaptation to climate change. And therefore, he welcomes this project, and he believes that we will be able to achieve great things with it, and hopefully we will be able to contribute concretely with the adaptation to climate change. He welcomes the fact that the project is led by the University of Milan, the Unimont Center, and he concludes with a sentence from a poet. I don't know if I will translate it correctly, so please apologize in case. When men and mountains meet, big things happen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the president of Federbeam. It's clear that we have on board very important national and local Italian stakeholders, but last but not least, I want to thank and welcome the representatives of Alpini, the military corps, Italian military corps dedicated to mountains, to mountain areas. And so thank you very much for being here, to Alessio Cavicchioli, Brigadier General, I don't know if it's correct, I beg your pardon, but I don't know things regarding the military organization and the levels. And also the Colonel Daves. So thank you very much for being here. Another part of Italian national institutions which are ready to share and to interact with us. So I think we prepared a very interesting field to be fertilized with the results we will obtain from 5 years of activity together. So finally, I want to thank Unimont team, which is working hard every day, but in particular these days for the organization of this meeting. And so I close the first session of the kickoff meeting, wishing a successful and fruitful meeting, and I hope we will generate useful and satisfying results for mountain communities all over Europe. Thank you very much.
Okay, so Carsten, if you can hear me. I hope so, yes. Okay, so we now move on to the Horizon Europe missions session, and we have two representatives from the European Commission. So I will now give immediately the floor to Carsten Goddard from CINEA. I apologize for the pronunciation of your surname, who will present a little bit the overall idea behind these projects. So Carsten, I will share your slides, or do you prefer to share them?
Actually, we will start with Sophie's slides.
Oh, okay.
So
apologies.
Because
so
that sets a bit, yeah, so the plan is to set a bit the political scene, the political context, and talk a bit about the mission and the importance of projects like your own about this. And then I will follow up with some words of the technical implementation, a bit more a dry topic.
Sophie, the floor is yours, and I apologize for.
No worries, no worries.
Hi, can you hear me now? Yes, I think the slides are in not in full screen but presentation mode, but I don't think it's perfect. So good morning, everyone. My name is Sophie Berger, and I'm working for the European Commission for the Directorate General on Research and Innovation, and more specifically, I'm working in the Secretariat of the Mission on Adaptation to Climate Change. Can you Yes, perfect.
Yeah,
Can
sorry,
you move on
it's
to...
just because if I put the slides for you, then here they see not the presentation, they see the presentation mode and vice versa. So I will just use the.
Okay, they just put the presentation mode for me. It's fine.
No, it's, if it's fine like this, I will use
Yeah.
it for this. Okay.
Yeah. So can you move on to the next slide? Yes, and the next one? Perfect. So here, the goal of my presentation is to present to you a little bit more the context, the policy context of where your call is taking place, because this call is a call that is part of something that is called the Mission on Adaptation, and on the climate adaptation scene on the EU level. You might have heard of the European Green Deal, which is one of the priority of the current Commission, and one of the big, the idea with the Green Deal is to set the environment at the center of the policy action of this Commission. And one of the big projects is to make Europe climate neutral by 2050. But what is a little bit less known is that it's not only climate neutral, but also climate resilient by 2050. And to do that, in 2021, the European Commission released the new adaptation strategy. And the idea with this strategy is to really set a vision on how to make Europe, the continent, adapted to the unavoidable impacts of climate change by 2050. This strategy relies on 4 different pillars. So the first one is that we want adaptation to be smarter, so based really on the latest data and really guided by the knowledge. We want also adaptation to be more systemic, because there's been progress in adaptation, but most of the time it is in specific sectors, and like the challenge posed by climate change are so huge that it needs to be cross-sector and really much more systemic in the way it is approached. And then a third element is that it needs to be faster also. There's been some adaptation efforts, but we know where we should be. And then the last pillar, which is a little bit relevant in this case, is that the adaptation strategy sets a vision on how to step up international action for climate resilience. And so within Europe, one of the main implementing vector of this adaptation strategy is through the EU Mission on Adaptation to Climate Change. And this is what I'm talking about, this is what I'm working on, and your project is part of this Mission on Adaptation to Climate Change. So can you move on to the next slide? So the idea with the mission is it is inspired from the mission to the moon from Apollo. So basically we have one objective and we do everything we can to achieve that objective. And in this case, in the mission on adaptation to climate change, this objective is to support at least 150 European regions and communities to become climate resilient by 2050. The difference with the adaptation strategy is that the adaptation strategy is for the whole of Europe and the timeline is 2050. Here with faster, it's 2030, so it's basically tomorrow, but it's a smaller subset. So the idea is really to work with a coalition of them willing, test solutions on the ground and see what works and what doesn't to really to really accelerate adaptation efforts afterward for the whole of Europe. And for this mission, there are 3 sub-objectives. The first one is to really prepare Europe for climate disruption. So it's very general. It's trying to address citizen communities, region by making information more available and really trying to set the ground for adaptation. Then we have the second objective, which is about accelerating adaptation effort with 150 communities and regions and local authorities. It's about testing solutions and see what's worked, what doesn't. And this is really like the goal, and your project really fits in this layer of this pyramid, because this is really about deploying, trying and test solutions. And then the third one, it's the third objective or sub-objective is to really scale up solutions that have worked to have at least 75 demonstrators. Adaptation in the way it is designed in the mission needs to be first place-based, because it needs to be tailored to the local context. Even though it's a global issue, the local impacts are going to be different, and every single different regions has their own strengths and weaknesses. It needs to be systemic, and this is also linked to one of the pillars of the adaptation strategy, and it needs to be inclusive. So if we want adaptation to be a success, we need to really take into account the point of view of the stakeholders. And if you can move on to the next slide, please. So the way the mission has been designed is that in the mission implementation plan, we've really highlighted 4 different enabling factors. So it's on the side of this figure, it's behavioral change, knowledge data, governance and engagement, finance and resources. And we think that those needs to be the conditions that needs to be there in order for adaptation to be a success. And then the mission focuses on 6 community systems, and those are critical infrastructure, health and well-being, water management, land use and food system, local economic system. And then in the center, because it touches on and it's linked to all the others, we have ecosystem and nature-based solution. And your project is really trying to target this key community system. And for us, the nature-based solution is really key to the mission because it has a lot of power and it's really important because it has a lot of co-benefits as well. And so this is a little bit more to explain to you like the concept of a mission, and now a little bit more into the details of the mission. Can you move on to the next slide? And the next one. So really, like the idea for, because adaptation is such a challenge, the idea with that is that we need research and innovation to guide the way. And this is why this is a project funded by Horizon Europe, which is a research and innovation program of the EU. And the idea is to make the link between the research and innovation project, but not only. So on the left-hand side of this slide, 2 regions and local authorities, because we want at least 150 of them. And so to engage those regions and local authorities, we've opened a call to sign a charter, a mission charter, and we had 308 missions, regions and local authorities that committed to the objective, to work towards the objective of the missions, and they are there. And you can say that it's almost 40% of Europe. And to make the connection between all those actors, between the regions and local authorities themselves, the research and innovation actors, the project on the other side, we have the mission implementation platform in the middle, which will act as an umbrella to connect all the different places. And the mission implementation platform, MountResilience, has several goals. First, there is coordination to enable exchange between the different actors. There is also support to the regions and local authorities. There is some communication because it is supposed to act as the communication channel of the mission, and there is an aspect also of monitoring to see how the mission is progressing. And so if you can move on to the next slide. This is, quickly, so this is the key actors involved in the mission. You can see it on the left-hand side, you have the European Commission because it's an EU initiative, and then on the right-hand side, the regions and local authorities, which are the end target, the one that needs to be adapted. But in the middle, you have a lot of different actors, and you can see that you, here as a project, you're in the middle for research and innovation community because you are key to delivering on the mission's objective. But MountResilience, the mission implementation platform, is also key because it will connect all the different elements. And so if I can move on to the next slide. This is just in case you are confused by who is doing what for the European Commission. So we have 2 mission managers, which are not so important for you. And then we have the Mission Secretariat, which is a joint undertaking between the Directorate General for Climate Action and Directorate General for Research and Innovation. And this is really the steering body of the mission. And then we have CINEA that is doing a great job at running the different projects. And this is what Carsten is going to present afterwards. But there are also behind the scene a lot of other services from the Commission really involved in that. And so it's really a joint effort. And if I can move on to the next slide. So for the end of this presentation, I just wanted to focus on one of the things, which is the community of practice. And so if you can move on to the next slide. With your project, you're really in a particular position because you are the interface between 2 community of practices. The first one is the climate adaptation community of practice, that of the mission via MountResilience. And then the second one is another community of practice, which is more about the tool, about nature-based solution, and this is via Network Nature Plus. In the conditions of the code, you have to engage with the climate adaptation community of practice, but this one is quite new. And if you have the capacity, we would really encourage you to also try to connect to nature, to the nature-based solution community of practice, because this one has been active for a while, it's functioning very well, and has a lot to offer. But but both are really important to us. And so just if we zoom in a little bit on the community of practice of the climate adaptation mission, if you can move on to the next slide. So the goal of this community of practice is to really facilitate exchange of knowledge and experience, and also really strengthen collaboration amongst the participants. In the community of practice of the mission, we have the signatories, so the regions and local authorities. We also have friends, which are groups that endorse the mission. You have the mission project. Also, you have connections to member states, authorities, and national contact points. So you have a link to the national level, and also a link to European institutions. And the way this community of practice is organized, if you move on to the next slide, is that there are three nodes. The first one is the interregional nodes. This one is really for the regions or local authorities to exchange between themselves. There is a research and innovation node for the EU-funded projects, and so this is where you belong. And then there is an EU-level node, and this is more related to EU institutions. The idea is to have strong connection between all the nodes, but also within the nodes. And so that means that if you're very welcome to register to the community of practice, which has at the moment 575 plus members, and it's still growing. And the research and innovation node was launched last week with a kickoff, which I don't know if some of you attended or not, but yes, but then the slides and I think a report is going to come out soon. So if you're interested, I invite you to have a look at that. Just to focus on the next slide a little bit on the purpose of the research and innovation node, the idea is really to enhance the linkage and collaboration between the projects, so a little bit like what you would have for Network Nature. It would also help, and this is more feedback to policy, to identify research and innovation gaps to help really inform the future direction of the mission. Then there is also the idea that through the community of practice and the research and innovation node, project could really improve their communications to regions and their connection to regions. For instance, if you realize that you have nature-based solutions that are working, or solutions that are working quite well, then it would be a perfect channel to really transmit that to other regions that are part of the mission. And finally, the idea of this node and the community of practice is really to facilitate the delivery of the mission objective in a way that the sum of the different part is greater than the part individually, because together it is much stronger and we can achieve more. And so this is really the idea with the community of practice. And if you move on to the next slide, this one is just a few words about the community of practice on the nature-based solution. This is coordinated by the project Network Nature, which is a follow-up of Network Nature, and it's there to support and promote the work of the nature-based solution project. It has 6 different task forces that are working on horizontal matters of common interest, and they are producing joint products. And also another interesting feature of this community is that they also have regional and national hubs that meant to be the bridge between the local and the national and the higher level. And so if you're interested in that, I'm sure that my slides can be shared, but I've added a couple of extra information slides. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I don't know if it's now or after Carsten's presentation.
Thanks a lot, Sophie. I would actually leave the questions at the end after Carsten's presentation as well. So I will now share your slides, Carsten.
Okay, perfect. Then, okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then also a warm welcome from my side. You can believe me that I would have preferred to be there today in person with you, but alas, it was unfortunately not possible. For those who don't know me yet, which is probably everybody except the coordination team, my name is Carsten Gerrits, and I will be your project officer and basically be the main point of contact for exchanges for your coordinator here at the Commission at CINEA. Next slide, please. Yes, so I work for CINEA, which stands for European Climate Infrastructure Environment Executive Agency, and what this means is that we are the agency implementing different funding programs relating to those topics. So we usually like to call ourselves the Green Deal Implementing Agency. There are like plenty funding programs that cover these areas, like the LIFE program, but of course the one that's relevant for you is Horizon Europe. And my unit manages the climate research dimension of Horizon Europe and the legacy projects of Horizon 2020. And what CINEA is, the role of CINEA is that of the granting authorities. So that means that we are responsible for guaranteeing and safeguarding the provisions in the grant agreement. So to make sure that everything is implemented properly. And second main purpose is that we are the focal point for any communication concerning the project and its related activities. Next slide, please. CINEA has the role of, is in charge of the entire project life cycle. Like the first two steps that you see here in the blue and green circle, evaluation and grant agreement preparation, that you have already successfully completed. And now starts the core of your activities, the project implementation on your side. And for me, that means, of course, the project monitoring. But of course, we're also there to support any communication activities that you have, dissemination, of course, could be a channel for any policy feedbacks. So what would help for us in that regard is if you have contact with other parts of the European Commission to keep us in the communication, keep us in the loop, put us in CC in all those communications so we know what is going on and can support on our side. Next slide, please. The grant agreement, basically the Bible of our common work together. That is the contract that you have signed with CINEA, and then I definitely invite you to take a look at it. The legal part, the rules that govern the project. This will help you to address the needs you will encounter during the life of the project. You will understand how the rules work. Will provide. And also it provides answers to some or many of the questions that we will have in the future. Of course, we would like that people read this actually, but of course we also know in the same time that this is unrealistic. But what we definitely ask of you is that you use it as a first reference document. So if you have any questions on how does this work, what we can do in this case, this is different now, what do we do? Take a look into the grant agreement, say, look what the provisions for your specific project say, and if there's also an annotated version with more explanations available, the annotated grant agreement, which gives a bit more explanation background how to understand certain provisions. So that should be like your first look up point, and then this presentation that I will also share afterwards is compiled as a second reference document. There's many slides in this deck that I will not share today. But it's a point where you can look at afterwards as a second resource if you have any questions. Next slide, please. And so you have the grant agreement and the legal part, the rules, which admittedly are sometimes a bit difficult to read or boring. But the annexes of the grant agreement, that is where all the details are laid out. Who does what, when to do what, when to deliver what, and with which budget. That is detailed, laid out everything in the annexes A and B. So of course what we expect is that you deliver everything as agreed in due time and of course of high quality. But if in case there's any delay, then of course it's very important that you inform me well in advance, and then we can together see what we can do about it. Like if you have to communicate a delay or ask for an extension on certain things, it's important then to right away always assess what this means for other parts of the project. So if a deliverable is delayed, and then tell me right away if this means something else in the project that was supposed to build on this deliverable is affected by this. And when here in this context, when I say you tell me this, in reality this means of course Stefano or someone else from the coordination team. They are the channel to myself. So everything you have, any questions, any requests, any delays, you put to Stefano, and everything he cannot answer or needs to inform me, he will do that for you. And the same, I will function as the channel from everything of the of Cinea to the coordination team, and he will then relay those information to you. If we need to make any changes to the description of the action, that is what we call the parts A and B and Annex 2 of the grant agreement, the description of the action. That's where all the details are. Then, of course, amendments exist as an option, but we really try to keep those to a minimum because they are a lot of work for sometimes very small changes. They're very burdensome for everybody, and as you can see with the current one, they often take longer than anticipated, even though like our work on this time this is done, but the approval steps just take some time. Next slide, please. And of course, some changes are possible because, of course, you cannot necessarily foresee everything that will happen over the course of a four-year project. But what cannot happen is anything that changes, any amendment that changes the nature of the project. So that might call the grant decision into question. That is a no-go. But other things, of course, can be changed. Some we would require the process of an amendment, some don't, but what is always necessary, definitely, is a discussion between the coordinator and the PO, so myself, beforehand, so then we can see what are the next appropriate steps. So an example, if a project partner wants to transfer a small budget amount from one cost category to another, but for the same beneficiary, then there is a simplified procedure for that, so there's no amendment necessary. Of course, the exception to this, anything involving subcontracting, or most changes involving subcontracting do require an amendment. But if, for example, you want to move something from other direct costs to personnel costs for the same beneficiary, that usually is possible. Then it's also very, very important to inform us at the very earliest stage for amendment, because that first notification is then taken into account if something has to happen retroactively. And also important to inform us at the earliest page so that not all those changes that you might have in mind, all those delays, don't come up suddenly at the end of a reporting period, because that is not the default time to raise problems or major changes compared with the description of the action. Because then that carries the risk of that some costs that you have or that you have incurred, and then you want to retroactively change something related to those costs, that those costs are then ineligible. So to avoid this, very important, always communicate at the earliest stage possible. Next slide, please. I just mentioned a reporting period, and when it comes to reporting, there are basically two flows. There's the periodic reporting, which I will talk about in a minute, and then we have the continuous reporting that includes the submission of your deliverables, the completion of your milestones. There's a summary that will be published in Cordis, basically the big database we have for all the projects, where you have to describe what you're doing, what's the progress beyond the state of the art, and things like this. Publications belong to this, your communication dissemination activities, anything related to open access obligations, gender, and those things. That's a continuous reporting. That's what you do the entire time. Always update those things in the portal in Sigma, and then I regularly check if everything is as it should be. For you, maybe important that if you have a public deliverable, which usually at the end of a reporting period is approved, if everything is done well, and then also published, if that one is related to something, say still internal or confidential, if you have intellectual property right issues with it, or there's a paper pending, for example, we can then still hold those deliverables and publish them only later. So if there's anything like this, let me know, and we can definitely manage that. Also, an important point to mention when it comes to deliverables is that it's good practice to avoid photos or personal data where you might need informed consent before publication. Or it's best to for example, what some projects do is when they have a deliverable that's the report of the project meeting, then they put a picture of the project meeting in there, and then sometimes this can lead to issues. So it's best to just avoid these kind of things. So if you're late with anything for a deliverable, for example, let us know, and of course justify, and what I said earlier, assess the effect on the rest of the project. That usually does not need an amendment, but might need a formal request in the portal. But as long as you let me know, Stefano or the coordination team let me know, then we can see what the best course of action is. Next slide, please. Then the periodic reporting. So first step, check the project has started successfully. You have received the pre-financing, or at least the coordinator has. And then every 18 months or so, or every 18 months plus at the end, we have periodic reviews. They are there to check whether the project is being carried out according to the description of the action. And they consist of a technical and a financial report. And generally we use experts to help us assess what has happened for the project, to help us assess the deliverables and assess them against the description of the action. And then we organize review meetings to discuss these things, any deviations, any problems, how to address them best, etc. And in our experience, this is very useful also to have an external eye on the project and get a bit of an idea how to steer in the next 18 months. Maybe there's some good ideas that come from the minds of these experts. Those happen usually in most cases now online, but they can be organized in presence if it works out, like if you have a project meeting that lines up in Brussels, or if it's back-to-back with a project meeting such as a General Assembly, then it can also be organized wherever you are, but usually in most cases they are nowadays online. And to each report there's then, of course, that's important for you, there's a link, the interim payment. And then that's usually more related to the financial reporting. There might be some extra clarifications asked, but usually the deliverables, the review of that, the technical, scientific review is it's a common but separated workflow. Next slide, please. The good news for you, for those reports, for the technical and the financial one, is that there are templates that you can use to create those reports that will become available to you once the reporting opens. That is at the end of your reporting period, then you will have them available to you, but you can also find them earlier than that in the portal under the reference documents. And just a few things to take note of maybe is the report you should report on the progress against what was agreed upon in the grant agreement. So how far have you come, is everything according to plan? You have a section on communication dissemination there also to include what you have done there so far, include a table maybe reporting against the KPIs that you define in your strategies. In the second and third review, you will have to explain how you took up the recommendations from the experts. And then, of course, very important section of these reports is usually the deviation section, where you explain everything that hasn't happened according to plan, which is, of course, in many cases legitimate, like you will have good reasons for this, but it needs to be reported, justified, and any changes this implies for the future need to be laid out there. So don't take this section too lightly, but really provide any details necessary in there. I mean, in most cases, any deviations, the coordination team and myself will have discussed beforehand, but still it needs to be present in those reports, like to legitimize it. Next slide, please. There's, of course, the financial side. I will be supporting this by a financial officer. And, of course, there's the usual rules that you have to comply with. That's the costs must be actually incurred by the action, so they need to be in your books and linked to the action. And one key message or two key messages basically I want to impart here for this slide is that you keep records of the personnel costs, with the exception of somebody who works full-time on the project, and this full detailed timesheet might not be necessary. And the second one is that you keep your physical documents for at least 5 years, and of course according to your national legislation. From the European Commission or external audits are possible after the project is ended, and then the auditors will come to you on site and look into your documents. So it's really important that you keep those in the shape that you have received them. So from our side, this might be different in your national legislation, so check that. But from our side, if you have received a digital ticket for a plane, then you don't need to print it, but save the digital version of it, for example. Next slide, please. Very different topic, but not less important at all. It's something that we take very seriously. It's everything related to communication, dissemination, and exploitation. Communication basically is informing about the project and its results. So that's what we like to see. That you have a website, you might have newsletters, social medias. You might want to maybe investigate something else. Well, probably Twitter still makes sense, but you might want to investigate if there are others that make sense at this point, just in case if Twitter becomes something that is untenable for climate researchers. What I would like to also tell you about is that we have an informal tool here at the Commission, or at CINEA, is an internal newsletter that we send out every month to interested people in the Directorate General. So that's mostly climate action, research and innovation, but also environment and others, where we talk about the findings of our projects, announcement of interesting workshops, if you have any great publications, videos, etc., anything that's exploitable. And that is generally very successful, it's well read. So take this into consideration during work. So meaning if you have something that is interesting that I might need to know of in advance to put this in the newsletter, then please let me know about this. And especially if you have anything where you expect to have a major media impact. So we can support this then from our channel. So let's say that the CINEA Twitter channel can get in on the action. Then the next step here in this line is dissemination. That is about sharing the results with potential users. Like this in research, of course, that is one of the main ones. But you, of course, also have industry, you have financial institutions, you have commercial players, you have policymakers on every level. So publications, policy briefs, workshops, etc. This is what we're talking about when it comes to dissemination. And exploitation then is making actual use of your results. So that's what then actually maximizes the impact of your research and creates additional value from the results. So that can be what people mostly think first of is the commercial exploitation. But in research projects, there's of course also a lot of non-commercial exploitation, like further research in another follow-up project or anywhere else. Policy uptake, very important here in the context of the mission. But also education, like if you have education material to produce and that could be used in schools or universities, that is definitely also a very good example of exploitation. But as you can also see, like the boundaries between communication, dissemination, exploitation are not always super clear. But yeah, it's definitely something we pay a lot of attention to also in the case of reviews. Next slide, please. And what is also very important, what I always like to highlight is to understand communication, dissemination, exploitation as a shared responsibility of the consortium. So it's not something that is completely outsourced to your communication team and the work package and task leader of that. It's definitely something that requires like a joint effort. So don't leave your communication team hanging. I've been in that role, and it can be sometimes a bit frustrating if basically you don't get anything from your partner. So provide them with your results and any other interesting activity so they can then, in the second step, work their magic with those results. But they need to hear from you first what needs to be communicated. And they then in turn will make sure that all the materials are of good quality, that the website is user-friendly, and then leads everybody to what they are looking for. And of course, as Sophie mentioned earlier, please make use of the mission implementation platform, the MIP for that, as a very, very important communication channel. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. Next one. Yes, that's where I wanted to go. Open science, another important aspect, another one that we pay good attention to is because it's a new application under Horizon Europe. Under Horizon 2020 it was a pilot, but now it's obligatory for every project, and it goes beyond open access. So it definitely encompasses both publication and data. So for publications, this means there's a number of things what this entails is that you make publications available via archiving in a repository at the latest in the same time when it becomes available, when it's published. So of course you can, certain ways you can go about this. You could deposit the accepted author manuscript even before publication, if that's allowed, or at the latest, of course, the final version for simultaneous publication with the journal and for you in the repository. It should be a trusted repository. Those are very important. Like if you don't know what is a trusted repository, there are some tools here at the bottom that where you can find some. But if you're a university and you have a library, they can also get in contact with them, because they can definitely help you identify one. And this deposition into a repository for publications is necessary even if the journal is open access. This is to protect you and the access to the paper against things that are not entirely in your control. So, I don't know, journal goes bankrupt, introduces a paywall, stops publishing, etc., etc. So, linking to the journal website again is not accepted as a repository deposition. Neither are things like ResearchGate. But what is accepted is, for example, Zenodo. If you have institutional repositories, that definitely is okay. And sometimes there are specific ones to a discipline, also all fine. And another thing that you definitely need to take into account early on, or be aware early on, only full open access journals are eligible for reimbursement. So the costs that you have related to that, they definitely can be charged to the project, but only if it's a full open access journal. So hybrid journals, where some articles are open access and some are not eligible for funding. You're definitely allowed to publish there, and this is good to fulfill your open access obligations, but you can charge those costs to the project. And to check if your journal that you plan to use is compliant with the provision, there's the journal checker tool that I have also linked to here below. It's also institution sensitive. Usually you can check, like select European Commission, and then it says, okay, these journals are compliant with the provisions required by the European Commission. It's still a bit new, so there's still some bugs being ironed out. So verify what you find there, but it's still a very good first port of call. Next slide, please. That's just a tool that the Commission provides to you to help you fulfill your obligations. It's an offer. You don't have to use this at all, but you can, of course. It's called Open Research Europe, and it's a platform that wants to fast-track publications while still keeping with the peer review process. So while usually, I guess, the publication times are like 6 to 12 months from submission, here the plan is to have it reduced to like 4 months. And it's you can submit papers for peer review here at no cost to you. Also, if you use this, make sure that you automatically comply with the open access provisions, because publications are, once they are approved and published, automatically sent to Zenodo, and that is a trusted repository. So this is definitely something that you can make use of. Just take a look into it if it's something that you can consider using. Next slide, please. So for the other section of the open access with the publications, the other one is the data.
Carsten, sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you, if possible, to conclude in 4 minutes so that we have some time for questions as well?
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Okay, so I'll skip a few things maybe here. Open access to data. Make sure that it's of course designed to improve access and reuse of research data generated by publicly funded research projects. What this means is that you don't need to have all your open data, all your research data open, but you can still decide to keep certain data closed, if for security reasons, patenting, commercial exploitation purposes. But if you open them, then you should use CC by Y or CC0 licenses or any equivalent license. And if you keep it closed, of course, you need to justify it. The key sentence here is to keep it as open as possible and as close as necessary. And also, of course, this should all be laid out in your data management plan. And here are some tools at the bottom also, that there's a template for the data management plan and some other tools that can help you with that. And some more for data repositories. Next slide, please. Acknowledgement of EU funding, of course, that's a provision on the grant agreement, so it's an obligation for you. Key message here is just basically put it where every public-facing or semi-public-facing item of your communication activity or of your activities, period. So your website, your social media channels, your publications, your event materials, flyers, etc. There's some help for how to do it in the grant agreement, and when you have scientific publications, there should usually be 4 elements to this, to the acknowledgement. That's mentioning the EU, the funding program, the project acronym, and the grant agreement number. Just make sure those are always present, and then this is all good also for charging the costs for those publications. Next slide. Another thing that we pay a lot of attention to, and something that Sophie has already touched upon, is the synergies, the clustering with other projects and other initiatives. The top left, you have in the circle the projects that are funded from your own project, so your from your own topic, sorry. So your sister project, as we call them. So there are already 5, which is already a critical mass, a relatively big group. A large community is already on its own. There are 2 further currently under GAP. So there will be a lot of projects that work on similar things in different biogeographical area. You're the only one working on the mountainous regions, but it's could be very helpful to make sure that the communication between those projects is good, that you make use of it, create synergies wherever possible. Use this critical mass, really. Like, for example, if you have, I think most of these projects will have foreseen some kind of policy brief. So you could see if it's possible towards the end of the project to have a common one that it's underwritten by all 5 or 7 projects. Because that then, of course, is a very different message if you have 7 singular ones with a similar messaging. So get into contact with these projects. I can definitely facilitate this contact. The MIP for ADAPT can definitely facilitate this contact. To make use of that is very, very important, and definitely something we expect. As you have all these projects, including your own, you have foreseen the resources for the clustering, so it's definitely something we want to see and we expect to see. But those sister projects are, of course, only the first port of call. You have in your topic text, there was some mention of previous projects on the Horizon Live and other funding programs. You have the mission implementation. I'm not going to mention that, talk about this again. And you have other projects like the Opla platform for where you can upload results related to nature-based solutions. And you have Biodiversa, which is the partnership under Horizon Europe for biodiversity, and they definitely have work streams on nature-based solutions. And one that they use to get nature-based solution results from projects to international fora. So IPBES, etc. And they have a very direct link to national policymakers. So that's also maybe something you should definitely look into when you plan and map out your clustering activities. They also just launched a call on nature-based solutions. So there will be further projects that start in 2024. I think they launched it yesterday or the day before. No, yesterday. So look into those projects that come out of those calls and check up, get into contact with them and see if you can work together on certain things. Next slide, and I think that's basically the end. We can basically skip this. You're aware of this. Next slide. Just some links to some resources. Take a look at them. Annotated Model Grant Agreement. I mentioned this before. This is where you can find it. And that's it, I think. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Our socials. Follow us. Tag the Sandicinea Twitter account in anything major that you are announcing on Twitter, and then maybe they can retweet and use their bigger follower account to help you spread your results. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. I ask if there are any questions to please come here, maybe in front of the camera so that they can see you. It was a lot of information, so maybe we need to process also that. But as they anticipated, the slides will be shared with all of you, so you will be able to access all the information and find out more at the links that they suggested.
Yeah, and also it's indeed a lot of information. So if you need some time to adjust, to sort this all in your head, to phrase your question, like you could over the next few days collate any question you have, and then Stefano can send me an email with the catalog of those questions, and then I come back to you. I get back to you with your answers.
Okay, I think people are looking forward for the coffee break, to be honest. So maybe that's why also they do not have specific questions. But yes.
Very understandable.
So thanks to both of you for your presentation. Of course, as you saw in the program, we are also going to work on the project tomorrow. And maybe, Carsten, if you have the time, I will share with you the link, because some of the sessions, not the parallel ones, but the other ones will be accessible remotely as well. And we will get in touch with you in case we have questions or we want to discuss more details. So thanks a lot.
Yes.
I would move, as you saw, we are a few minutes late, so I would move the coffee break until 20 past 11. If you need to change, as I said before, this is the time to do it. Then at 12 we have the bus, so please come already changed. And so we meet at 20 past 11 here to do the final session for this morning. Thanks. So the idea is to present a little bit the concept behind our project. So as most of you know, actually mountain areas cover 35% of the land area, of Europe, and 29% of the EU member states. And they're home of approximately 17% of the population. And we have a lot of mountain ranges, as you see on the right map, which is from a study from the European Environment Agency. And the focus related to our project is the fact that mountains provide ecosystem services for all of us, even, and most of all, I could say, to the ones that do not live in mountain areas. So they're really important for all the services they provide. They were recognized as vulnerable at the 1992 UN Conference on Environment and Development in Rio, and they're a really important part of trying to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. However, mountain regions in Europe especially are suffering the effects of climate change, and they're suffering more than actually the lowlands. So the effects can be seen more here. So as an example, by the end of the century, it is projected that European mountains will have changed physically. Large glacier. Okay, it's the we will not have large glaciers, especially in Europe. And as we were saying also here, there wouldn't be any more glaciers. For example, to give you an understanding here, just above Ponte di Legno and above Edolo, where you will be tomorrow, we have the largest Italian glacier. It's called Adamello, and it's suffering a lot from the climate change effects. And there are studies from the University Milano Bicocca, another university, that are trying to assess the mass loss, and it's really increasing a lot in these years. So adaptation to climate change is really relevant in all of these sectors, which actually our project will focus on: water management, agriculture, forestry, tourism, as an example. So this has already been said, so I will skip it because we're late, but as you know, we will lead the project for the next 4.5 years. We are 47, so please bear in mind that we are 47, and we also have to get in touch with 47 partners all the time, so be gentle and kind with us because of that, because sometimes we make mistakes in the emails, and I apologize for that, or we make mistakes also in addressing people because we do not remember all of you. But hopefully after these 2 days I will. And it will last until the 29th of February 2028. I don't know if I put the right date, but I will find out if it's a business deal. The total project cost is 15 million euros, and the EU contribution is 15, a little bit less, because of course we also have the Swiss partners here represented. And that's why we put the co-funded by the European Commission, by the European Union, no-go, and not the funded. But there was a little bit of discussion about this with CINEA. here are the regions involved, and as you know from the program, tomorrow we will have parallel sessions. So the idea is that tomorrow we will focus on all the regional demonstrators, and you will have the opportunity to get to know them, understand what the focus will be in their demo, as well as to understand from the 4 replicator sites what the interest is for them to uptake the results that the regional demonstrators will implement. So I will not go into details about this because tomorrow we will actually get to know the partners and understand who they are. So this is the core objective, but I think I will skip that as well. And by the way, this will be also shared, and this could be used also by you project partners to disseminate information about our project, so you can already have a canvas. And the overall approach that we want to use also in the regional demonstrators, or most of all in the regional demonstrators, is to try and implement a place-based approach. So you are expected to engage with a lot of stakeholders, to go a lot on the ground and understand the feelings about different topics from different stakeholders and different people, because the idea is to promote a shared adaptation strategy and a shared solutions in these territories that we work on the project. And the overall idea is that we will be able to reutilize the results that we implement by providing other mountain regions with the adaptation strategies and overall concept and methodology that we will implement within the project. So we have 3 stages basically in the project. The first one is preparing the ground for climate resilient transformation, and this will be focused mainly on in work package 1, and we will have that presentation tomorrow afternoon. The second stage is the development demonstration and local scale-up of cross-sectorial tech and social innovation solutions, and this will be the focus of Work Package 2, so the regional demonstrators. And of course, this is not only consequential, but as you will see tomorrow in the presentations, the idea is that the regional demonstrators will benefit from all the results that Work Package 1 will work on, and you will be able also to engage with all the partners in Work Package 1 to understand how your regional demo will be able to operate and how to structure the overall activities. And then the last stage is the sustainability and broader take-up of all the implemented activities. Here are the work packages, so we have 6. I will not go much into details about these. So the first work package is led by ZSI. So the overall basis and the conceptual framework of the project will be developed within this work package. Then we have AS University of Milan and WUPI2. WUPI3 will be led by the colleagues of Innova, and I guess you know Dora already from our emails. Then we have WUPI4, which will focus on communication and dissemination, and networking, which will be led by Euromontana, and we will have a presentation on that tomorrow as well. Then WUPI5, it's focusing on upscaling and exploitation for sustainability, and it's led by Meta, and they will present as well their idea tomorrow and on Thursday. And then we have the WUPI6, which is the project management, which is led by us. So to go a little bit into the topics, I already basically said them, and I guess you should already know about all the key community factors that we are going to address in the project. So water resources, biodiversity loss, the upward shift of snowline in terms of tourism and other type of resources that are available on the territory. So the idea is that the regional demonstrators will work on multiple factors and will be able also to highlight basically how they worked on these factors and how other regions can benefit from the work that they did. So the idea at the end of the project is that the regional demonstrator will be able to suggest other regions, which are the replicators, but not only them, how to implement the solutions that you are that you will be working on, and how these solutions actually improved, hopefully, your climate change adaptation in the territory. So these are the results, but I will not go into details. So basically, we will have to implement a lot of things, but we have 4.5 years, so hopefully we will manage to do that. So I think the overall focus will be on the regional demonstrators, of course, but also how the regional demonstrators' activities can be further exploited. So it will be really important to understand how your demo activities will be carried out from all the partners, not only your regional demonstrator partners. And that's it. I was really quick, hopefully, because we need to catch up some time. I will now move on to the next session, which is, sorry, I do not see anything, but that could be a problem. Okay. So this morning we gave you a sticker book, and Armando will explain from Innova. You might know him as well already. A lot of you asked what's that about, and Armando will solve all these issues now.
Yes,
please.
Thank
Armando.
you. Thank you, Stefan, and good morning. My name is Armando Alves, and I work as a senior consultant at Innova. We're based in Portugal, and I'm attending the meeting with Dora Fazecas, who is the head of the territorial cooperation unit, that it's the unit within Innova that it's associated with MountResilience. So we have 47 partners, we have a very big consortium, and the idea of this session is to understand a little bit the consortium. So we need to understand the project and the objectives and the tasks and the work packages, but we also need to understand the consortium that it's actually going to do all of the work and implement. And we have all kinds of partners. Within the project, we have at least 3 typologies. Some partners are more associated with the demonstration, with the demonstrator sites, others with the replicator sites. And then we have another typology of partners that are more, that have more, let's say, horizontal tasks that are not associated with any specific demonstrator or replicator, for example, communication and activities. And within these partners, we have also different actors from civil society, business, we have universities, regional governments, local governments. So in reality, we have lots of expertise, which is really good because within our consortium, we cover a lot of areas, and it's really important to understand within this big consortium, which are actually the organizations that are part of the consortium, what is their expertise, meaning the organization itself, and then also what is the specific role of that organization within the project. But also the people that are involved. Actually, each and one of you have their own expertise within your organizations. So how can we understand the consortium and all of this expertise? So we just had the last minute decision. We will cancel lunch, and I will go through all of the 47 in detail. No, it's a joke. We have a much better way. So we developed Getting to Know the Partners challenge. So it starts with this empty booklet. It's empty on purpose. So all of the 47 partners are here represented by typology and by country. And in that table, you remember a couple of months ago when I asked for a short sentence about your organization. So thank you very much because everybody replied. And also thank you very much because nobody asked why we wanted that information. Actually, we appreciate that because we didn't want to tell. It was a surprise. So we used that sentence to make some stickers. So in that table, you will find something like this from your own organization. So at the end of this session, please go to that table and just take the stickers from your own organization. So you will have a copy of the text that you send, okay? And the challenge is to basically exchange stickers with all of the participants. So in the end, you have the book, the sticker book complete with all of information. So it's an easy way to have a very brief description about the organization, but it's much more about the process, because this gives you an opportunity for the next 2-3 days to network, have an excuse to talk with someone that is next to you, ask the organization, the role, the name. We start to associate some faces that will be helpful in the future. So this is the challenge that we propose. There is a prize for the winner, and the winner will be the organization. We have 2 prizes? 3. We have 3 prizes. Okay. A trip to the Caribbean. No. Let's see. So the announcement will be tomorrow at the dinner, right?
It depends how fast you are to collect all the stickers.
Okay. One thing about how fast should we be? This is more about the process, okay? So after this, don't just start exchanging really fast. So take your time to actually talk.
It's not a trip to the Caribbean, so the price is not that big.
So take your time to network, to talk, and just enjoy this game, and I think that's it. So
yes, for the missing partners, Armando will be the jolly, so he will be impersonating the partners that are not here.
Okay.
And then you will be able to judge his impersonation, and if he will be good, then he can have a prize. Otherwise, he doesn't.
Yes. So basically, I will have the Innova stickers, and also from the 7 partners that are not attending here. Okay. So I'll have 8 stickers to give you. And once you complete, or the first one that, whenever you complete your book, you please take a photo of the complete book and send an email to the MountResilience email. You should already receive several emails from that account. So just take the picture, send in an email, and the first 3 will be awarded a prize and announced soon.
Okay, so this is it. You will be able, after a short presentation, to get your sticker book, and then you start exchanging, and you will find out the prices tomorrow. And hopefully this will help you also in understanding who is who and so on. Okay.
Thank you.
So before, actually, we are exactly on time. Gloria will be really proud of me. I have 2 things to say before the final presentation. I remind you that in 15 minutes our mobile phones will go on. It's not my fault. It's not an emergency.
But it means
that I know
it's
of.
time to go on the bus.
Yeah, it's time to go on the bus. Gloria orchestrated this with the Italian government.
Very well connected.
Yeah. This is the first thing. For tomorrow, in case someone of you is not at the hike, or I do not remember to say this, you will have a bus in front of here at 8:15 that will give you the lift to Edolo. It's 20 minutes, right? So not so much. So please be there at 8:15. One of us will be there to help you, not me. Mara. Okay, so Mara, the other girl that was here before, and you will see her also later, she will be here in case you have any other questions. The last thing is that we will have then the lunch break, and you will be divided into 2 groups. One will begin the excursion at 1:30, the other one approximately 2, so that it's easier for us to manage the overall stops and this course. I think we will divide by Italians and not Italians, because we also have some external people coming to the event, and we would like to give the explanation in Italian to them. But for that, Gloria is the reference, so if you have any questions, please bother her and not me. I'm joking. For one group, actually. The other will be Mara, but everything will be explained after with some food. And then to conclude with, I will give the floor to Professor Guidetti, who will explain a little bit what is Climbing for Climate and why we're also opening our kickoff meeting to the general public, let's say, in the evening. So we'll share the slide.
Thank you very much, Stefano. I'm Riccardo Guidetti. I come from the Department of Agricultural and Environmental Science of the University of Milan. But I'm here because, first of all, I'm not a part of your project, and my compliment for the project because it's an opportunity also to share this moment to understand exactly which are the objects of the project and, in general, the organization of the project too. But I'm here because I'm the delegate for my university in the network of the university, the RUS, that is the network, the Italian University Network for Sustainable and Development. Why is important? Because we wanted to make this presentation because, as you know, the case study of the afternoon is inserted really in another manifestation, in another event that we have, that is Climbing for Climate. That is a national event that the university of this network organize. Is about, I think this is the fourth edition that we have, to have a moment of, to make some consideration for the mountain and the problem of the mountain, of course. Stefano, thank you. The network is actually formed by 85 universities from all Italy, of course. And we start our activities as network in 2016 under the auspices of the CRUI. The CRUI is the Conference of the Italian University Rectors. So we are at high level in the Italian organization, in Italian management of the university, of course. Why? Which are the topics? Why we decided to organize this network? The reason you can read from the slide: to spread cultural and best practice, especially on sustainable issue, of course, to increase the positive influence of university towards society, because we know that this is a problem in many cases of communication between the university and the other part of the society. So it's important to have some new instrument to increase this possibility, and then to promote the Sustainable Development Goal, of course. That is another important reason that we wanted a network about it. The governance. The governance start from, the governance start from the Italian university community, but we know, for instance, that also in other countries there is similar network, so are very interesting also to make some comparison between different countries, but we know that, for instance, in France there is an interesting network like this, and in other regions too. Then we have, of course, an assembly when we have actually 85 delegates, and then we have a committee with 11 delegates, and the actual president is Professoressa Lombardi, that comes from the Polytechnician of Turin. That is the actual management or the manager of all the network. We have also some local committee. At the moment, we have local committee only in Campania, Lombardia, Piemonte, and Abruzzo. The next one. But I think that the core, the more important thing that we do are the working groups. Working groups that at this moment are about this topic: climate change, food, education, energy, inclusion and social justice, mobility, resource and waste, and university for industries. These are working groups organized with a coordinator, of course, and each university that wants to participate has some member that can participate to the work of the working group. They do periodic meeting, as you can imagine, and the important is what they do. They do guideline, best practice, surveys, something to know exactly, to know better the university system and the correlation between the university and the town, because in our cases, as you know, in Italy, the major or the main number of our university are city universities. So it's very important the correlation between the university and the city or the landscape that when they are. Here you can find the next one is a correlation between the activities of the working group with the SDGs, and you can see that in this sort of matrix, you can find that with the collaboration of all the group, we cover all the SDGs, and you can find in some cases also with a very, very strong cooperation and very, very strong productivity of event or also product of the evaluation and the work of this working group. The next one are, we have a lot of initiative with different target, initiative for general audience in general or for student, and also for the communities of the universities that are very important. And between this, we have also Climbing for Climate. The next, Stefano. Climbing for Climate, which are the reason of this initiative. The reason are to bring the problem of the fragility of the mountain territories to the attention of the scientific community and civil society too. Of course, this is very important. We promote case studies shared within the network, and because all these studies are shared with our website, of course, and we start usually with a national event, and in this case we have in July a national event close to this area because it was on Adamello this year, when all directors or director that decided to participate can have a meeting to discuss about these themes, of course. And then the other reason of this event is bring the problems of the mountain to the attention of the different university, because we have to remember that not the university has a particular interest in the mountain, but perhaps they have other skills that are interesting to sharing and to evaluate the problem. No? We are lucky in our university because we have a center like Unimont, but it's not all the university have experience like this. And could be also interesting, we think, with Anna Giorgi also, the possibility to organize also at the end of your project, why not, a working group on mountain inside this network, because it could be very interesting to have this possibility. So, I finished, so we can go to lunch and also to the moment before the ET alert. So the important is sharing. Sharing is the really reason of the network. And so at the end, I invite you to consultate our website, where you can find all the documentation and all the product that our working group are producing. So please evaluate it, and you can, for instance, you can find the guideline documents and so on that we think are very interesting also for evaluate, to have another possibility to understand something more about the sustainability, of course, because this is the reason. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just 2 remarks before we go to lunch completely. So please take your stickers, remember that. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, yeah, of course, you have the bus then outside just of the hotel. Another thing for also the next days, please keep your badge, because if you noticed or not, the logo of MountResilience is in different colors, and then that will help us with the working groups in the next sessions. So if you lose it, then we have to print it out again tomorrow, so please don't. And then Mia and Armando wanted to say something as well.
Just a big thank you to Revolve, to Nima and her team for producing all of the beautiful materials that have been handed over at the registration. So thank you.
Thanks a lot.